For Giacomo Casanova, the time was now ripe for the climactic scene in a bizarre scheme. The lady was Madame Durf. Her wealth was surpassed only by her imagination. Being a sincere believer in the Kabbalah, Madame Durf wished to be reborn as a man. Only as a male would she be allowed to commune with the Kabbalistic spirits. Using a young friend as an accomplice, Casanova was to invoke the proper magical environment. Then, he would father the male child, which would carry the spirit of Madame Durf. In return, Casanova would gain control of her estate. The evening was a strange mixture of fantasy, imagination, and eroticism. To conclude, Casanova was to spend the night outdoors, waiting for a cosmic sign of success. When the sign came, it was loud and clear, and it frightened Casanova out of his wits.
Although Casanova was to inherit Madame Durf's estate, her daughter managed to gain control of her assets, thereby doing Casanova out of his reward. Madame Durf was intended to be a victim, but since she enjoyed the full measure of Casanova's services, and he enjoyed very little of her money, we're left to wonder who was the user and who was used.
Venice was controlled by a governor who left the daily affairs of state to 3 inquisitors. For them, Casanova meant trouble. There were his financial double dealings, his mystic activities, and his scandals with the wives of royalty. In 1755, when he was 30 years old, he was escorted to the royal palace. This was not a social invitation. His talent for intrigue and scandal had left a trail of enemies. Now, he was caught in his own web. The top floor of the palace was a prison. Here, without trial and for unspecified crimes, he was locked up, possibly for life. A painful prospect for a man who so desperately needed the company of women. Because of the metal roof over his cell, the prison was known as the Leads. No prisoner had ever escaped. While exercising in the prison hall, Casanova found some hope. The metal bar took a month of work until it was sharp enough, and then his plan went into action. After 15 months of imprisonment, he climbed out onto this roof on the night of October 1st, 1756. Finding a workman's ladder, he lowered himself past his own barred window and entered the business offices below. His intention was to wait until morning and walk out the front door when the palace was opened. He didn't have to wait long. He was seen at the window by a passerby who took him for an important nobleman locked in by mistake. The front door was unlocked, and Casanova was free.
That was Casanova's own version of his escape. Was it true? There are some who say it was a fiction, a product of his own fertile imagination. The disbelievers suggest that he may simply have bribed the guards and he was released. Personally, I prefer the romantic version. In any case, he would now be exiled from his beautiful Venice for 18 years, the Venice that he loved so much.
To Paris, to Holland, to Rome, Milan, Marseille, London, running, conniving, debauching. The pursuit of women resumed. Several times he considered marriage, but cooled on the idea in time to avoid the commitment. On the one occasion when he came close to taking the vows, circumstances took a strange turn. The young lady was named Leonilda. Casanova asked for her hand, and she agreed. Her widowed mother was sent for to complete the arrangements. Now, the ghost of his own past intervened. The girl's mother was Lucrezia D'Antoni, with whom he'd had an affair some years earlier. The young lady, who was 16, was his own daughter. For a short time, he was grief-stricken, but very soon consoled himself by renewing his affair with the mother of his almost bride. He arrived in Florence, alone and empty-handed. He was granted asylum by Duke Leopold, who told him he would be welcome if he stayed out of trouble. His good behavior lasted 2 weeks. He came to the rescue of an actress being abused by a theater manager. Once again, his adoration of the gentle sex was his downfall. He was reported by the manager and expelled from Florence.
In the endless string of assignations, flirtations, intrigues, call them what you will, the question remains, was there love? The answer is yes.